allowing the self-judgment to run its course, but just say, no, I don't know, maybe know the logic, but I'm going to trust that because this feels good, it's sending me in the right direction.
Hello, my friends. Today we are meeting for the first time the one and only Jordan Duvall. She is the CEO of Ignite Your Soul brand and the go to brand alchemist for female business owners ready to take their businesses to the next level. I am so excited to introduce you to her because she has a great personal journey that I think speaks so much to so many of our experiences. She left a 20-year media and advertising career to pursue her passion of creating magnetic brands infused with personality. And she does so in such a beautiful way. What I love about this interview is you'll really pick up on her passion. When she speaks about something she's interested in, she just lights up and she really exudes this confidence, self-confidence and knowledge of who she is. And I know from personal experience that she's done the personal development work, having met her at a conference where we were learning more about personal development. In this episode, you're going to find out why it's so important to identify how you want others to feel when it comes to branding and marketing your business. She also talks about giving yourself permission to evolve and change your mind. I mean, I think that's such a critical aspect of personal development. She'll also hear us talking about the power of choice, and she tells us a little bit about her fascination with human design. You're going to love this episode, especially if you are a mom business owner, because you'll definitely be able to identify with what Jordan reveals about her personal journey. Join me in welcoming Jordan Duvall. Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be such a fabulous day. I cannot wait for you to meet this incredible woman. We are welcoming today to the episode Jordan Duvall. Welcome, Jordan. Oh, I'm so psyched because two of the big things that I love about you is number one, your authenticity and just your ability to just show who you are and share that with the world. And then your expertise with branding and how to support your clients to do the same for their businesses. So thank you for being here. We need your magic, Jordan.
Excellent. Well, I would love to share my magic. I can't get enough of it. It's so
So
fun.
cool. So tell us a little bit about your history, first of all. We'd love to know your background and your personal development journey. And, you know, you started out with this incredible 20-year history in media and advertising and this phenomenal career where you were so accomplished. What caused you or drove you to start a whole new business of your own?
Yeah, great question. Well, I'm originally from Los Angeles and now I live in Asheville, North Carolina. And, my whole family was in the industry for a time. My parents are both retired and my brother stopped doing visual effects and now has a video arcade bar in LA. And, we were just, all entertainment all the time. And, it was great and I learned so much. And, but really things started to shift for me when I wanted to start a family, right? Because our values change and our identity changes. And I didn't want to raise my daughter in Los Angeles. I grew up as a girl in LA and I knew the pitfalls of what would happen. And I was like, I want her to live in a bubble for as long as possible. I know one day she'll eat the apple, but if we could extend that timeline, that would be amazing. So, I knew that I wanted to leave LA and, coming from a background of designing movie posters and TV posters, like that's only done in LA. So I knew that I needed to figure out something else. And for a time, I was actually doing network marketing with Beachbody, which was a huge learning experience. And I was in the best shape of my life and like love the company, love the platform and all that stuff. But I just could never wrap my brain around the identity of like Jordan is a fitness coach. Like I was like an unathletic, chubby kid in growing up, and I was like, man, I just can't align with this. So I finally ended up hiring a business coach because I had started multiple businesses in the past that never worked out because I was trying to figure everything out on my own. I felt like if I asked for help, it meant like I didn't know what I was doing or I wasn't competent. And after enough failures, I was like, nope, I'm and I hired a business coach, and I was just like, I know all of these things. Like, what do I do with them to package them into a business? And that, once I got started with her, it was really this journey of, I mean, I think business is the greatest path to personal development that you could possibly ever enter into.
So cool. So cool. So what did you learn about yourself along the way?
Yeah, well, I think the thing is when I was working for agencies and corporate, you never like you get a paycheck every 2 weeks, right? And like if you're grouchy or something's off, it's just, I know for me, I was just like, I kind of passed it off as like, this is normal and this is life. And once I had a business, everything was it was such a mirror. What was going on
Mm.
with me was mirrored in my business. And I started to see the connection and I was like, wow, I need to work on myself to see the results I want in my business. And I think when you work at a job, you're kind of protected from that awareness and insulated from it. But when you see that your energy and your mindset and your habits like directly correlate to the results you get in your business, i.e., translation to your bank account, it's like, oh, you have my attention. I'm listening.
I mean, I just think we need to pause there for that great moment of clarity that some listeners might be having at the moment is we think so much of what's happening in our business is outside of us, but really it's so directly related to the work that we're doing on ourselves.
Oh, it's completely 100% related. I mean, all the work I do in branding is like inside out branding. How do you take your energy and your soul and actually like map it into your physical online presence so that people resonate with you and are attracted to you magnetically?
That is so cool. So, how do you help clients who, when you have this moment where they might have an awareness like, oh my God, I need to start working on myself. And yet I still need to keep this business going. Like, I don't have time to wait 5 years to become fully personally developed. How do you help them in that process, in that journey of rediscovering themselves now so that they can take action on their branding now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, one thing that I really celebrate with my clients is their uniqueness. And I think that a lot of people can think like, there's nothing special about me. There's nothing unique about me, suffering from imposter syndrome. Like, why would anyone listen to me? Or feeling envy. They look at someone else and they're like, well, they're really successful. And so therefore I should do what they're doing, right? Like, I'll have what she's having. But what I think people don't often understand is there's so many layers to why something works for someone else, right? It comes from like background, story, beliefs, like your actual energetic makeup, like how you're designed from a personality standpoint. I'm like nerding out on human design, like all of that stuff plays into it. I weave
Mm.
that into the work that I do as I continue to learn more about it. And so instead of looking at other people and saying, like, what can I do to be more like them? I really work with my clients to flip the switch and be like, what can I do to be more me?
Wow. Wow. That's so cool. Okay. So, how do you start?
Well, I take them through this layering process of like really, peeling back the layers of the onion of who are you and what makes you you and what makes you unique. And it's so interesting because I'm, in the middle of a magnetic brand cohort and like I definitely have a avatar, right? I have a niche. And so I attract people that work in transformation. I work with service professionals as well. But there's definitely like a through line that people work with energy, they like love mind science, right? They understand the connection of the internal and the external, whether however they play that out in their own life or in their business. And to watch everyone come out, right? Like I take them through this process of decoding their brand essence and figuring out really ultimately at the core of it is like, what is the feeling that you want to create in your audience, right? When people interact with your brand and have an experience with your brand, what is that feeling that you want to create with them? And I layer different things together. And then it's like pulling different levers, right? So it's like, well, what's leading, right? If you're saying like, well, I'm a really bold brand, right? Like you could be a brand and you're like bold, glamorous, and creative. And bold could be the main word. You're going to show up online and have a visual presence that's leading with bold, right? It's going
Hmm.
to like dictate your colors, dictate your style, dictate your fonts. If you show up and you're, being more glamorous, that's going to be a different way of leading, right? Like bold will be more of an accent. And then if you're showing up as more creative, that's going to lead it, right? So I take them on this journey to really figure out how do they articulate who they are, right? Find the words, find the feeling, and then map that onto the visuals of like what is a visual that actually conveys that image. And that's why I really tap into the power of the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind works through the power of visuals, right? It's through feelings and emotion and visual that you tap into the subconscious mind. So it's through weaving all that together and then narrowing in on speaking directly to the subconscious mind, right? That's what makes people magnetic.
Ah, that's so cool. Many of my audience listeners are single practice owners,
Mhm.
business owners, small business owners, entrepreneurs starting out on their journey and feeling really intimidated by these big box corporate entities that really have so many more resources, so much more money. And so the question is, how do I define myself in this big ocean of opportunity for my patients and my clients? So, what would you say to somebody who has that insecurity?
Yeah, and I mean, it's totally normal to have that insecurity, right? You're like, I'm the little fish and I'm going to get eaten by the big shark. And I would say one of the biggest things I think to differentiate yourself is your values, right? And it's like I work with my clients to articulate their values, define their values, and then actually weave them into their brand imagery so that the story of who they are and what's important to them is coming across in the visual presence they have. So I would really start with that, right? Like you could say that maybe you're a family practice and you really value family and children, right? You're going to position yourself from a messaging standpoint and visually to convey that message, right? You could value more, holistic dentistry, right? And so your vision and how you present yourself needs to express that. You want people to know who you are without having to say a word, right? And that's really what I focus on, is like weaving your story into your imagery so that people know who you are without even really reading any of your copy. They already have a sense of this person's for me, this person's not for me, which is good. You want to call in the people that are the right fit, and you want to repel the people that aren't, because everybody wins when you work with the right clients, right? And when you weave that in, right? I'm trying to think of like some other examples. You could be more like of a corporate dentist office, right? I mean, my ex-boyfriend from college, he was a dentist, and I helped put him through dental school, so I'm well versed. I remember one day we were at the dinner table and he was like, "Let's talk about hairy tongue," and I'm like, "What?" You showed me pictures, like,
We don't put that on our front page of our website,
I
a
was like,
hairy
I don't
chug.
even know about that ever again. Thank you very much. But some people like might lead with cosmetic, right? And so they're going to have a level of polish and lead with that like esteem of the transformation, right? So it's like really digging beneath all and getting all these layers clear and then mapping the visuals onto it. And I think a lot of times people do it backwards and they're like, I'm just going to hire someone to do my logo and my colors and my website or whatever. And, I've been on the other side where I get assets and it's like, go to work. And it's like, okay, what are you? Who are you? How do I express that? Right. So when you can really articulate who you are and hire a creative to execute your vision versus hire a creative to define your vision, you take the power back.
Mm, that's the magic right there, is that actually the power is within you and you have all the answers. It's not that somebody else outside of you does.
Exactly. And they're never going to have, right? So it's like I really
Mm.
give my clients and my students the tools and the framework to articulate who they are, and then, guide them with my expertise of like, well, based on who you tell me you are, right? Versus who I think you are. You've told me who you are. Let's layer all these pieces together and figure out, well, what does that look and feel like, right? And then from there, it's like, well, then you layer in all these pieces, right? Then it's finding the right team. I mean, so many people I know are like, I just hired a branding photographer. And I'm like, okay, but do you know what, like, how to like direct them to give you what you want, right? So it's like, I think a lot of people miss that step, the clarity step, before they go into doing the creative piece, right? And so oftentimes they end up disappointed, they're wasting money, they don't get what they want, they get something that maybe looks nice, but it doesn't feel like them, so they don't send people to it. So it's like, well, that's was for nothing, right? You just wasted all this time and money and it doesn't do what you need it to do.
Wow. The other thing that strikes me as you're speaking is having that clarity for yourself in terms of your life plan, not
Mhm.
just your business plan. You were speaking about when you made that decision for yourself with your daughter about what your life plan wanted to look like and having clarity of the direction you were going in and understanding your values in terms of your life plan.
Right.
How has that interwoven for you in business and with regards to your life?
Uh, well, it's always evolving, right? Like I know my core, but as I learn more about myself, I'm like, I want to do that or I don't want to do that. And so I think it's also giving yourself permission to continue to evolve and unfold and change
Yeah.
your mind, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean you're negating where you were, but it's maybe you're more aware of where you want to go, right? And so, for me, family is really important. And I'm if for anyone who's a human design nerd, like I'm a generator, right? Like I love to work and I have like an innate, like I'm just like I could work 12 hours a day, right? So it's like learning to balance that of like, okay, boundaries around work and now it's family time, right? So it's like I need to focus on creating like transitions or rituals to like cap activities. So like work doesn't just like take the lead, right? So it's like, and now that we're coming out of COVID, I'm just like, whoa, I think I could have a social life again. Maybe I should start like get back in touch with my friends and like make new friends. I was like, what a concept. That's so fabulous.
There's an old value I was ignoring for a while,
Yeah,
kind of
it's like,
whispering in my ear. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
it was so heartbreaking to hang out with people and it was all you talked about. And I was like, I'd rather just live alone in my little creative world than talk about this anymore.
I know, I know. And isn't that interesting? I think so many of us did exactly that. We dove so deeply into our businesses because it was a salvage for us.
Mhm.
It was also an opportunity for communicating with others. It was outreach. You were on so many amazing calls with all your clients and all your courses that you were getting that social integration.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like you're on Zoom, it looks like the world's normal. So I was like, I'm all for that. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, like I could plan lunch with a friend or go out to dinner. Like this morning I was like, oh, I could maybe like have girlfriend dinner. Wow. Okay. I need to like wrap my brain around it. I feel like I have to like reframe my thoughts around social life because I just kind of like shelved it away for so long.
And I love how you're just giving yourself that permission you were just talking about to evolve. So
Mhm.
maybe there are different seasons of our lives where we're pouring more of our time and passion into one area and then giving ourselves permission to change again.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's an interesting point you make about seasons, right? Because I think, there's definitely pressure to be balanced. And I mean, I think balance is a lie, right? There is no such thing as balance. If you think about balance from a yoga standpoint, right? If you're doing tree pose, you hold tree pose for a few seconds. If you hold it for 30 seconds, if you hold it for a minute, you're like a champion, right? It's like you have it, you're there, everything's in sync, and then you fall and then you get
Mm,
back. So it's always this like trajectory towards balance. And so it's really about creating like a holistic life, right? That, like you
mm,
said, sometimes you have, like when I wasn't launching, it was like there was 2 weeks where it was like we're ordering dinner or you're cooking dinner. Like I need to be relieved of household responsibilities. Like I need to do stuff on the weekends. So it was like a bigger work thing, right? But then as I look, as summer's coming, it's like, I mean, I'm going to be doing stuff with my daughter and spending time with my family and like work, shutting down work at an earlier hour so I can spend time with my daughter outside. So it's like really rolling with the seasons and making adjustments in your life and your habits and your priorities as your seasons change.
If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you didn't get into business to be miserable. The problem is that people feel that if their business gets busier, if they start becoming more successful, that happiness will eventually set in. But it can actually get worse. This is why I created the Business of Happiness Prosperity Coaching. In this one-on-one coaching, we look at how to redefine success on your terms and re-find the joy and the passion in your dream. Visit me at thebizofhappiness.com and become the happiest business owner you know. How do you personally prevent the self-judgment that then ultimately steps in when you've just had a killer launch, you've just done a ton of production, and now you're choosing to maybe pull it back a little bit for the summer? Those old whispers come in, I
Oh,
know.
yeah.
You should be doing this. You should be pushing it. You're on such a big upward trajectory. You should keep going. So what practice do you use to kind of talk back to that self-judgment?
Yeah, I mean, self-judgment and I are like besties.
I I say that only because I see you, sister, and I'm right there with you.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, she knows me. Ah. Um, it's a good question. I mean, like, there's definitely fear of like, oh my gosh, and it's like it's really working my beliefs. It's the
Mm,
belief of like, oh my gosh, if I'm not pushing really hard, that's crazy. And I was actually talking to a woman I know who's a human design expert, and she did like a talk with my mastermind, and then I booked in a reading with her, and it was really interesting because she's like, you can tend towards doing things because you feel like you should, right? And so you have to understand that learning how to say no and creating space is going to be really beneficial for you, because then like the universe isn't like a vacuum, it's going to put something in its place. So if you put something you don't want in its place, it's going to lodge itself in there, whereas if you learn to say no. And so I had like it's a good lesson because I'm a like highly structured planner, organized, and I'm like, I've got it all planned out for the whole year. And now I'm reevaluating as we're in Q2, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. Like I
mm.
don't like, I'm not sure if I want to launch that thing, or do I really. And that was the other thing that she was talking about. She's like, you need to learn how to do less and say no. And I'm just like, oh. And I've been playing in my head of like, well, if I don't do that and I don't do that, what does that look like? And I'm like, oh, it's a lot quieter in there. That's nice. It's like, if I can really hone my focus, life is happier.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we talk so much about saying no to the things we don't want, but what about saying no to some of the things we do want just because it's too many, too much?
Yeah. Well, and I think I mean, it just really becomes about, I mean, honestly, self-preservation, right? That it's
Mm.
like, too, I don't want to let people down. It's like I want to do that, right? They want it, but it's really coming back and centering and like just starting to tune into my body and like what feels good, right? Like in my head, it's like, oh, I want to do this one thing. Like I had two big programs, and it was like, well, I really want to just do this one right now. And also, I think too, it's the right now versus
Mm.
always ever, right? So I was thinking about that the other day when I was driving around, and it was like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. And I was like, well, that's really limiting, because what if I change my mind? Anymore is like, I listened to your podcast on language, right? And I studied NLP. Like, I understand the power of language. If I say I don't want to do it anymore, that feels really like huge and dramatic, that it's like, I don't want to do that. But if I say I don't want to do that right now, it's like, well, I might change my mind in 2 or 3 months, right? Or 6 months or next year. So I think like paying attention to my own thoughts and my own language and tweaking, and it's, before I studied, became a master NLP practitioner, I didn't understand the power of language. I was so sloppy with my language. And I realized that, I had some pretty dark times as I began my journey of personal development, right? My water broke at 33 weeks. And I was on the bed rest for 2 weeks. And prior to that, we lost our house. I lost my job. It was just like literally everything you could possibly imagine just fell apart. And I didn't understand at the time. I knew I created, I just didn't know how. And once I studied NLP and the power of the subconscious mind and the power of language, I was like, I see. I was focusing on what I didn't want and speaking into the universe what I wasn't happy with. And I got what I didn't want. So I need to be really intentional with asking what I want, right? And like just playing in my head of, am I moving towards something or am I moving away something? Am I coming from lack or am I coming from abundance, right? And I think it's like really constantly checking in with yourself and asking these questions, because if we just fly blind, you're making choices and you just want to have intention about it.
Yeah, super powerful. Super powerful. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to hear your understanding and your realization, and then to see kind of from a third person's perspective,
Right.
the enormous success that followed.
Yeah. Well, and it's also the allowing the success. I think
Mm.
is really important, is like allowing it to be easy. And, I grew up with the story of like everything's hard. If it's not hard, right? Like no good deed goes unpunished. And it's like, I don't want to do that. And I grew up with the world that I grew up in, just thinking like, well, this is life. And then I remember I went to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within, and he started talking about limiting beliefs. And he was like, what are your three main limiting beliefs? And I wrote them down. I'm like, wait a minute. You mean I get to choose what I think? I don't have to take what has been served to me? And that was just mind blowing to me. And it really, I felt like I swallowed the blue pill because I
Mm.
started to really recognize, wow, I have a choice in the matter. I get to choose what I believe. I get to choose what I feel. I get to choose how I respond to things, right? Like I it really showed up in how I reacted to my daughter, right? Because I would just like be in a rush or be in a hurry and I would like snap. Like there was something that happened this morning. It was like, we need to go. But then, she was like, well, come look at this thing. And I was like, I can take 2 minutes and look at the thing. I don't need to be like, hurry up, we gotta go. Cause I was like, that's just gonna change the energy or maybe have tears and then it's gonna be a bad car ride and then I'm gonna be in a bad mood. So it's like I watched like my shadow patterns, for lack of a better term, and I'm hit to them. And like, believe me, I'm not perfect by any standard, but I'm always working towards self awareness and making better choices.
So cool. So what are you working on right now? What's your next level of growth?
Well, I would say personally, I've become obsessed with human design.
That's what you said. Yes.
It's so interesting. I mean, I studied NLP. Maybe one day I'll study RTT. But it's funny. I actually remember a woman mentioned it to me a few years ago, and she sent me like a recording, and I remember listening to it and be like, I don't have a clue what she's talking about. And then I met this other woman that was like, I do business coaching with human design. I was like, okay, cool. And it was just like it kept popping up. And then I had a client who was a human design expert, and she was a VIP client, and I flew out to Minneapolis. We did this like epic shoot and I got to know her and got to know her work. And she came and she spoke to spoke as an alumni. And I was like, this is really interesting. And then I just started to fall into a world where like, people had different levels of expertise and started talking about it. I started studying it and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Like once I realized I was a generator and like loved to work, because I had like a friend in college that I really would love to get her chart because I swear she's a manifester. And I was like, I know why we had tension because she's a manifester. She was judgy that I like to work. She'd always be like, you work too much. And I was like, I like to work. And so I know now, I was like, I think there was just like a difference of energies that was not aligned, right? And it wasn't respecting the other, which I think is really interesting. And just weaving that in. So, I'm watching videos, I'm reading books, like I just want to educate myself. And I'm also fascinated with how you layer the energetics of that and a few other modalities into how you create flow in your business and how you create magnetism within your brand, right? So I love like continuing to layer these things in because similar to my journey of self-awareness, helping my clients, right, facilitating their level of self-awareness really gives them the tools, the resources, and the framework to understand who they are and how to express that in their brand and really be so rooted and confident in who they are and show up, right? And like ditch the imposter syndrome, get over the fear of perfectionism. They're just like, I'm good enough as I am, and I'm just going to show up how I want to.
And this is who I am.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and like take it or leave it. Like there's more than enough options out there. You're welcome to leave at any time.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's really, that's fun, and I like studying that. And then also something else. So I'm so excited about this. So I have to tell you the story. So I did a talk with a company I work with on how to plan the perfect brand shoot, right? And so I went through and I worked with another woman that I used to do some website stuff with. We talked about it, and then the woman brought her stylist on, and because I work with a lot of stylists, and she talked about style and color from the space that I come from with branding. So it was all about like energy, and it was like you pick your color, your style colors based on your energy, right? It's like if anyone's ever studied seasonal color analysis,
Mhm.
which is like we take that into consideration, but it also takes into consideration someone's facial structure and the design really of their face, their energy, their personality, their skin tone, their body shape, all of these things. And I was like, ooh, love me some layers. And so I hired her to make a palette for me. And shopping is like never like it was always traumatic. I was a chubby kid. I'm
I'm right there with you.
like,
Oh,
this is miserable. It was like, I just want to like, I would go shopping and I would come back depressed for hours. And now I have my palette and I know it looks good on my body. And I literally just go in and I'm like, is it in this color? Great. Is it this cut? Great. I'll try it on. And it's like, I can get in and out of somewhere in an hour. I came back a few weeks ago. I was buying some stuff for my challenge and I was gone for like an hour. I came back with everything I needed and I was in a perfectly happy mood. My husband was like, you went shopping and you're in a good mood. I was like, I know. Isn't it amazing? Like what can happen? It was amazing. And so after I had that, and I took a lot of the principles that I learned and I wove it into my brand when I did a rebrand. And then after I saw how people responded to me, I was like, I got it. There's something to this. I need to learn more about it. So I went and I like hunted this woman down, and she disappeared off the face of the earth. She didn't respond to my emails. She didn't respond to my texts. She wasn't on Facebook anymore. And I was like, what happened to her? Couldn't find her anywhere. So I was just like, all right, let it go. And then I went on a walk right before my latest cohort of magnetic brands started. And I was like, I sometimes like, I guess maybe I'm channeling my guys. I don't know. But like when I like kind of am in the zone in the woods, stuff happens. So I was like walking, I was like, I really just want to learn about this color process. Like I really just want to understand color from an energetic standpoint so that I can help my clients even better pick colors that align, that they feel good in energetically, right? So had that. We have our, like I go and I check my magnetic brand program, and a woman posts in the group her welcome message, and she takes a picture of her with the palette. And I was like, whoa, she has the palette. So I messaged her, I was like, where did you get that palette? I was like, I want to know. I feel like Cinderella, like the prince looking for the girl with the glass slipper. She's like, oh, I don't know, but I got it from my friend. And if you want, I can do some research. I was like, yeah, tell me. So she sent me some names, and I like was like feverishly online, like, where do I find this lady? So I found a bunch of people. Eventually, I found the woman that had like the most art directed, put together, beautiful website. I was like, that's my lady. And I messaged her. I was like, I need to know everything. So I got on the phone with her, and she's like, I'm not the one to work with, but you need to work with this other woman. She's like the hub, right? And she's got it all. Like she's the one that trains everybody. And I was like, she's like, I'll tell her you're contacting her. So I finally got her on the phone. I was like, tell me everything. She's like, and it's so funny because I usually have a pretty busy schedule, but it was like Friday afternoon. She'd finished a training. I didn't have any calls. She's like, can you jump on Zoom right now? I was like, yes. So we got on Zoom.
Perfect.
She's like explaining everything to me. And I was like, I know she's so funny because she opens it and she's like, this is all about harmony. And I was like, wow. And for those of you that know human design, my conscious sun is all about harmony. And I was like, got it. I'm in. So I like last night was looking, I like booked the travel. I'm trying to find, like, I'm working on booking the location. I've like negotiated with my husband, or I'm in the process of negotiating with my husband to be gone. And I'm so excited because then I can layer this whole other energetic framework into the work that I do that goes deeper into the style piece. So I'm really excited about that. And like, I'm going to weave that into like all the work that I do with my clients. So like, those are kind of my two current obsessions.
I love seeing the passion and excitement in you about what you do. It's so cool to just watch your whole being just get so excited about everything. And I just have to say thank you. Thank you so much for everything you do, for carrying that passion, for holding that interest and that intrigue, and for continuing to serve the incredible women in our arena as you do. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool.
So
How do we find you? If if any of my listeners are listening and they're thinking, I have got to work with this incredible woman, how do we find you?
yeah, so I am Ignite Your Soul Brand and all the spaces and places online. So I'm igniteyoursoulbrand.com. I'm Ignite Your Soul Brand at Instagram, and I'm Ignite Your Soul Brand at Facebook. And I have a Facebook group called Soul Brand Society, which is great because like my ladies come in there and they share about their journey, and you get to see the difference of everyone's brands and really celebrate their uniqueness, share tips and tricks about branding and like, magnetic branding and like aligning your business with your flow state. So all kinds of good stuff. And I'm actually opening up another cohort for magnetic brand that will be starting in June. So if you want to go through my process, right, and really get clear on who you are and how to articulate that and what that looks like prior to investing in creative services, right? Like if you're doing a rebrand or you're early on in your business, you really need to have this understanding of how to articulate who you are and create that framework so that then you can hand the vision over to people that you hire in your business, whether it's a copywriter, a web designer, a graphic designer, a photographer, right? And then you have that way to articulate it. And then I take you through my process of 20 years as a photographer, makeup artist, designer, art director, of how to actually take that and execute a brand shoot so that you end up with like a library of, anywhere from 100 to 200 marketing assets that you can use to share your business online.
So cool. Okay, starts June 8th. How do we find it?
It's igniteyoursoulbrand.com /magnetic-brand.
Awesome. So exciting. Thank you for being with us today. I'm so excited that we were able to make this happen. And I'm just so grateful to be able to bring your excellence and your expertise to my audience. So thank you, Jordan.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tarryn. It's been so wonderful hanging out with you. And we actually got to meet in real life, which is always so special.
I know. That's where I fell in love with you. Before we leave today, I'd love to ask you, what is your definition of happiness?
My definition of happiness is making decisions based on what feels good.
Mm, That's all that matters. How do you feel?
Yeah. Right.
Awesome.
And like you said, like allowing the self-judgment to run its course, but just say, no, I don't know, maybe know the logic, but I'm going to trust that because this feels good, it's sending me in the right direction.
Mm. And the permission to feel good.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
beautiful.
That part too is super
Yeah,
cool.
so beautiful. Thank you, my friend. It's been an honor. I'm so excited to know you. And thank you again for all that you do.
Of course. Well, thank you.
And thank you to all of you for joining us today. And remember, when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye bye.